Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Oceanhoarse. Heads will roll out February 17th on Noble Demon. This album has 11 tracks, 49 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are a Finnish groove hard rock band. As far as the album is concerned, the design is dynamic, it's engaging, it's entertaining. They did a really good job creating a record that allows the individuality of the songs to be there, but it also gives a lot of strength to the collective. This is an album that's really easy to listen to from first all the way to the last song. I just wish that there were some surprises on this record. When you look at the singles, when you look at the EPs that led into this release, there's no new real material here. So it feels more like a compilation of tracks that they've put out before and lacking some new tracks that would allow the listener to have something to look forward to, some gold nuggets here and there, some Easter eggs here and there, and I think that would have added even more mobility, would make the album even more dynamic, even more engaging. But the design that they put together for these songs that they already had in their back pocket, works really well, as I said, to give strength to the collective experience of going from first to last. As far as the sound is concerned, groovy hard rock is really the best definition for the experience you're going to get. This is perhaps more of a hard rock album than it is a groove metal album, but you're still going to see tendencies of both sides coming into the table, sometimes on the same song and sometimes in different tracks. It's an album that defines the paths and patterns really well as far as what bass, drums, and guitars and even vocals are doing. It's not muddied. It's not a muddied record as far as the production goes. It's also an album that simplifies the sound. It has a very organic nature to it. It almost sounds like a live album in the studio. It doesn't feel overproduced. It doesn't feel overworked. It just almost feels like every song was recorded on one take. It has that natural ability that really shines through, because you could hear all the different elements really well. You can see the definition of their timings, of their starting point and finish point, and that's really important for an album that not only in the structure but in everything that it does feels very simple, easy to digest, easy to process. But sound-wise, definitely a guitar-centric album. And if you're looking at groove metal, if you're looking at hard rock, guitars play a huge role, and this album is no different. I enjoy the guitar sound throughout. I thought it's a very dynamic, engaging album from that point of view, allowing the guitars to shine and have quality behind that sound in order for it to really shine through. It's also a winning formula as far as this record is concerned. And I have to mention the guitar solos. Every track, when you look at the guitar solos, they're always adding value to the experience of listening to the song. They're always adding value to the overall design of the song. And this makes the songs feel a lot more complete, a lot more mature in their nature, in their structure, even though the sound is simplified, even though the experience feels very raw and very organic. But it's not a muddied or dirty record, but it's also not overproduced. Somewhere in the middle, and the guitars really define that sound in the middle. Very rock and roll, no frills, to the point style approach. Now, the drums on this record, I felt like they could have had a little bit more oomph. The songs that have more of a methodic movement, or that bring a little bit of darkness to the overall atmosphere of the sound, the drums were perfect. They did exactly what they had to do. They added to that darkness, they created some volume, they created some thickness in the overall sound experience. But the tracks that have a little bit of a higher tempo, the drums could have been even thicker. They could have had more volume. They could have had more substance. They could have filled in the gaps a little bit better, giving even more heaviness to the tracks, creating more momentum, adding to what the guitars were doing. The distance between drums and guitars on those tracks is very noticeable. On the tracks that are heavier or more methodic, the gap is closer. There's less of a gap, if you will. And those songs, the drums have a lot more power and have a lot more force. I would have liked to see a more consistent approach across every single style song on this record. As far as the vocals are concerned, they are as dynamic as the sound is, and they kind of go where the experience is taking them. Some songs, because of their nature, the way they move, the darkness that they have, the clean vocals are there to emphasize all of those emotions, all of those details. The songs that have a higher tempo, or that are heavier or thicker in sound, you have more of a screaming style here and there that also emphasizes that intensity. So taking the approach of going where the sound is taking you is better, in my opinion, for any record than just going with the one-size-fits-all from start to end. The issue that I had with the vocals is that it didn't feel that they had the same sort of mixing and the same sort of production behind them on every single track. Same thing that happens with the drums, you're gonna find the same exact thing with the vocals. Some songs feel like the vocals are a little bit distant from the sound and the experience that the sound is creating. And some tracks, they're blended perfectly together. And it becomes a little bit more apparent the more you listen to the album. It's something that doesn't hurt the overall experience, and it definitely doesn't hurt the individual experience of the songs, but when you listen to this album multiple times from start to finish, these little details start to become a little bit more apparent, and then you start to gravitate to them because it becomes almost, once you detect them, it's impossible not to see them there again. So it's something that they could have looked at it a little bit better. Creating an album that feels like a compilation is fine, but defining the sound experience and flatlining it across every single track brings cohesiveness to the overall listening experience and to the record itself. A record that suffers from these little issues of not having perhaps new material, not having that more defined approach vocally throughout, the drums. These are minor things for a band that's releasing their second record. This is definitely a more mature album than their first album, but I think you have to look at growth and you have to look into the future, and fixing some of these details will allow this band to take the necessary steps into creating something a lot more robust, a lot more long-lasting as far as memory and what stays in the memory of the listener. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Help Is On The Way. This is the second track on the album. It has a great tempo. The drums and guitar combo work really well. It allows for more of a melancholic also pre-chorus and then a more melodic, methodic chorus. This is a track that has three different momentums. It has the verses, the pre-chorus, and the chorus. All of them sound different. All of them feel different, but all of them have a great progression from one to the next, which allows the song to be very dynamic, to be very fluid, and not necessarily feel like it has stop and go along each and every single one of these paths. Actually having these three defined paths but merging them really well allows for the overall experience to be a lot richer. The solo on this track completes the song. It gives it that exclamation mark that the track needed. Next, I want to go with Waves, a heavier, thicker sounding song. The drums really complement that sound extremely well. The gap between the drums and guitars on this track is a lot closer. There's less of a gap, if you will, which allows for more of a methodic movement of the song. So what you're losing in speed, you're gaining in heaviness and you're gaining in cohesiveness between all of the elements on this track. Even the bass sounds phenomenal in this song and really helps glue or bridge the gap between drums and guitars and bring it all together, creating a more thicker, unique wall of sound that stays consistent from start to end, with the vocals representing that sound extremely well. Another track with one of the brightest solos on this album. For a song that moves very methodically, that's heavy, I would even say dark at times, the solo really breaks ground and becomes a lot brighter, and it's the only time that you really feel like there's this infusion of brightness into the overall track, into the sound, into the atmosphere. Last but not least, Heads Will Roll, another guitar-centric song, one that allows the guitars to be in the forefront, a little bit separated from everything else, mixing heaviness with grooviness. Adding vocal layers on this track was really interesting. I mean, there's vocal layers throughout the entire album, but on this track they work better in terms of what they gave to the song. It made the song feel more rock, more live, more stadium rock, if you will. It allows you to feel that experience that takes you outside of the studio, and the vocals help define that experience. It's there in the sound, but the vocals and the layers in the vocals really help define it better. That sound experience becomes a lot better all around. It's a hybrid style track, if you will, mixing in the more direct verses with the more hooky choruses, bringing it all together as one, allowing the track to have movement, allowing the track to have a lot of energy, both on the guitars and vocals. It's definitely a song that lives off of the guitar sound and how the vocals interact with that same guitar sound, and then the mood that they both create. This is it, Oceanhoarse with Heads Will Roll, out February 17th on Noble Demon. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.